Good morning everyone and welcome to the week 9 garden tour here at Reach and Reverie. This morning, let's start with letting the chickens out. Hey girls, I'm coming. Alright, so I come in here. Oh my gosh. You girls are crazy. And there they go. So they don't always rush out of the coop, but when they do, it always scares me. They were ready. Look at them go this morning. They're getting an early start to free ranging. So that's honestly my fault. Normally, when I get up in the mornings, or when we get up in the mornings, we let them out into the run first and they're able to calm and start their day, you know. This morning, I just let that door open so they could come all the way out here already, and I think they were a little bit excited. Alright, the chickens have food, and I put it under the table so that they can have a safer place to eat without having to worry about hawks and things like that. And then they have fresh water. And then this one looks empty. Let me go ahead and fill up that food too. Dua, quit! Oh my word, Dua! No! Okay. I'm making a mess. I'm either one-handed because I'm holding a camera, or I'm one-handed because I'm holding a chicken. Alright, so this morning I had to hold Dua because she loves my camera and I wasn't going to be able to feed the chickens without her stealing my camera. So, alright Dua, you are free. You naughty girl. I don't know why, she just loves the camera. Yes you do, honey bun. Alright, so now that the chickens are fed and watered, let's go take a look at the garden. It's week 9, and here we are for our garden tour. Today, I want us to start with this beautiful cucamelon. While all of the cucamelons are taking off, this one hasn't grown much length this week, but it has been putting a lot of time and energy into developing this cucamelon fruit right there. Cucamelons, they make really small fruits, but they're full of flavor, and we're almost ready to try that cucamelon. Before I really start on this garden tour, I want to just take it all in and look at how much this garden has grown this week. I don't think we can even just capture it on this camera. I would need to step a little bit farther back. The tomatillos this week are now as tall as I am, and that's just astounding me that they grow that fast. It's week 9 and they are as tall as I am. So a lot of things I'm noticing this year with our garden is that the plants are getting these spots on their leaves, and almost all of my plants have it. So I think whenever we do garden next year, I'm gonna put a little bit more into shading these plants, because we are out here in zone 8B in the Chihuahuan Desert of West Texas. And even though my yard specifically is very, very shaded, we have a huge old pecan tree in the yard. We have a really large pine tree. I say really large. For West Texas, we got a pretty big pine tree. You guys are probably laughing at me at how little this guy is. And some crepe myrtles all over the place. So, in regards to the garden, I think I might have put, for a normal gardener, I might have put my garden in too shady of a spot. But out here in West Texas, like, I don't think that a lot of these plants can handle that much direct sunlight. So some of them get really good morning light, some of them get really good afternoon light, but regardless, I think they're just getting a little bit too much direct light. So, and it gets really hot out here. Every single day it's getting into the 90s, and today is May 31st. So I know a lot of people are still actually waiting to put their garden into the ground in some other zones, and some people are barely putting their tomatoes into the ground. And here we are 9 weeks into the garden, and for the past month we've been getting consistently in the 90s every single day, and it's a cool day if we're in the lower 80s. And I can't even remember the last day that it was only 70 degrees outside. So they have to put up with a lot of heat and sunlight out here. So we started a little bit earlier, and we're gonna take this garden as far as it can go. This week is really exciting because we have actually harvested some fruit this week. So back to the morning glories. Even though they are a little bit sun damaged, I just pick off the leaves that look unhappy. And it's growing pretty well, and hopefully we're gonna get some flowers on this morning glory pretty soon. My cucamelon over here is doing very good. I'm actually gonna pause and check on my chickens. I heard a big thump in the... Oh my gosh, that's what I heard? That's what I heard? Pip, you realize you are my naughtiest chicken. Oh my gosh, hold on. Come on. Hey, come on, Pip. Come on, let's go. Come on, Pip. Come on. Come on, Pip. Come on. Good girl. Get out of there. I'm glad I checked, because she would have been stuck probably. So our chickens, they are not allowed on top of the coop or on top of the run, and they know that. So when I heard a thump, I knew something loud, something big just happened, and Pip had, I guess, been on top of the run or the trash can and got stuck behind the run. Crazy chickens. Pip is our naughty girl, but we love her. She keeps things exciting here. So the cucamelon that we have growing up on this stump, I originally, when I planted it, thought it was going to completely fill out. Do y'all hear Pip right now? I think she's mad that she got in trouble. Like, she's over there. Are you mad, Pip? You're okay. Oh my goodness. You tell him. I think she needs to lay an egg, and she was looking for a new place to do it today and got in a pickle. You better not lay an egg back there, Pip. You know where to go. Crazy chicken. I love her, but she's crazy. Okay. So I originally wanted this cucamelon to fill out the stump, and I have one vine that's doing what it's supposed to do. The rest are just kind of tangling themselves in on the ground, and that's okay. We'll have to hunt for our cucamelons down there, but we're gonna get some cucamelons. So the corn this week is tasseling. Look at that. I've read that once corn tassels, it's about 3 weeks before your corn is ready to harvest. So I'm gonna keep an eye out and watch my corn. This is a dwarf variety, so I'm not positive really about the growth rate or if it's any different than regular corn. But I know this one right here is growing a little slower because it is competing with the marigold. But I didn't want to give up my yellow marigold. It's my only one that's yellow, so he can compete. We aren't growing corn so that we're gonna have a ton of food. I mean, like, we're growing 3 feet by 3 feet of corn here. I'm growing corn for the experience of learning how to grow corn. So we'll see how it does. I really like looking at the life cycle of plants. And I just think that this is super neat, these tassels. And then this one's like a dark red and it's kind of changed to purple over the past few days. And then the one behind it is like a white colored tassel. So I'm curious, does that mean that the corn is going to be a different color? So we'll have to stay tuned and see if that means anything, or I don't know. But that's really cool. I want to read up more on corn so I kind of know what I'm expecting as this continues to grow. My black beauty zucchini has been getting on my nerves, but I love him. I want him to grow really good, but every single day he decides, when the sun comes out, he decides to flop over on top of my ground cherries. So I'll come out here this afternoon and put him back here where he's supposed to be. So far we're getting a lot of flowering, but we're not getting any fruit production. So I think that might have to do with not having a lot of pollinators out here. I'm getting to the point where I think I'm gonna get some Q-tips and come and hand pollinate a lot of these plants in the garden and see if we can get some fruit. We are getting fruit development, a ton of fruit development on the ground cherries. I'm seeing just about as many ground cherries as I'm seeing leaves on this plant, these two plants. So, man, I can't wait. I'm looking at them and I'm waiting for them to drop because I really want to try a ground cherry. They look pretty neat. So ground cherries, if y'all guys are new to our channel, they are in the same family as a tomatillo. They are very closely related to tomatillos, but this fruit has a flavor that's similar to like a pineapple mango from what I've heard. And I've never actually tried ground cherries, so this is the first one for us. Everything in the garden is a first for us to grow, but ground cherries are a first for us to try. This is our first year gardening and we got a lot of diverse plants just to kind of dive in to the gardening experience. My marigolds underneath are getting shadowed out, but I think he's okay with that because he was a little stressed by the sun, so he's gonna help. This Blue Beauty tomato is growing really, really nicely, and he actually gets quite a bit of morning shade and afternoon shade, and he gets a lot of direct sunlight in the middle of the day, which is not the ideal type of sunlight to have, but he actually is not struggling at all with sun damage. Tomatoes love the sun. And look at his leaves. His leaves are really, really healthy and beautiful. And he's leafing out a ton. He's putting a lot of energy into growth. This plant I have not pruned suckers off of. I really wanted to have a plant that I let grow naturally. The rest of my tomatoes I am pruning suckers because I want them to put more production into growing fruit rather than growing leaves. So I am seeing that this tomato plant has not had a single tomato start growing yet. So I'm wondering, is that because I haven't pruned the sucker? Is it because it's growing in the ground? I mean, there's a lot of factors involved here. But one thing I know is that this Blue Beauty tomato is definitely a beauty. This week I did stake it to the trellis. He was growing all the way out here covering my path, and so I thought it was a risk tying him to the trellis this late in his development because I thought he would snap, but he didn't. He adjusted. I tied him right there, and so he didn't snap in half, and now he's growing really good. This tomato, he has grown quite a bit more since his little friend the other tomato I had here died, unfortunately. I have been planning on planting something in this area. I just haven't got around to it yet. So we'll see. He is kind of taking up a lot more space now. So I think if I do plant something there, it might be a pollinator, just so that he doesn't have to compete too much for nutrients and space. My little Hungarian black jalapenos are doing really good. These are the stunted ones that are not ever going to be as big as, you know, probably normal jalapenos, because they got a little cold while they were germinating, and that has stunted their growth. They are still growing, and I do think I might get some late jalapenos this season from these little guys. We'll see. But if they don't give us any fruit, I'm just happy to have them in our garden, because I think jalapenos and peppers are really beautiful. So I do turn this every few days so that they don't just completely bend towards the sunlight. But I think they're doing really great. They're in a good spot. They're out of reach of the chickens. They get some shade, but they also get a lot of sunlight. Peppers like the heat, and they like to hold hands. So since these are really small and stunted, I went ahead and planted them in the same pot so they could have friends. My fennel's doing pretty good for how hot we are. Some of the leaves are fried at the tips, but I've actually been harvesting a little bit of this fennel. Fennel tastes like black licorice, and it smells really amazing. It was actually really cool. I have my two little brother-in-laws who stay with us during the summer when they're not in school, and I handed them a fennel and I said, smell this and tell me what you think it smells like. And Trey, he was like, this smells like licorice. And I thought that was so cool that, you know, you get a plant and you smell it and it smells just like a candy that you've grown up with. No, they weren't really big fans of black licorice, so that's okay. They thought it was cool that it smelled like it, but we didn't make them try it. So along this wall, I mostly have pollinators. Some have germinated, some have not. I have done a little bit more poorly trying to grow flowers and herbs this season. I've done really, really well at growing vegetables and fruit. Oh my gosh, now that I'm taking a closer look, look at this. That, my friends, right here is a flower bud for my black king pansy. So I'm about to have some black king pansy flowers. I've actually been taking a look at this plant. It's actually two plants for a long time. Every single day I look and I'm like, okay guys, where's your flowers? I know it's gonna flower soon. And there it is. It's a black flower, and I will take a picture of it when I see it bloom so I can show you guys. My poppy over here looks like it's struggling a little bit in the heat, but it is growing, still putting off new growth, so he's doing pretty good. My zinnia is also looking a little fried, and this is surprising me because these guys get good morning sun and they have a lot of afternoon shade, and they are still struggling a little bit. You can see my sweet peas right here are getting fried, but they're growing pretty good where they can go and hide in the shade. So we'll see if we get any flowers. It might be too late. I probably planted these sweet peas too late in the season. I did plant them back in probably March or late February, but out here in zone 8B in West Texas, Chihuahuan Desert, we just get a lot of heat and sun. This season has also been really, really warm. My Art Combs Ancient Watermelon starts in this pot. And he has an arm that's going all the way out here. And then he has another arm that goes back and kind of is stuck behind there, but it's still doing pretty well, surprisingly. And then he has a third arm that comes out here and goes all the way down to this little sage bush. He is flowering a little bit, but I haven't seen any watermelons setting fruit yet. So I'm going to keep an eye out on him and see if we can get any ancient watermelons this year. So my kale is still hanging in there. We are getting a little bit of bugginess, but I think that's because he's so close to my early purple sprouting broccoli, which is completely bug eaten. Look at this. So I'm gonna give this leaf to the chickens. This one doesn't look eaten by bugs. Maybe this was from the hail or the wind, because he just snapped in half. Girls. They always hang by my garden when I'm out here because I usually have snacks for them. There you go. So the broccoli we haven't really eaten very much of ourselves, but I've been growing it, and anytime I get some really ugly buggy leaves, I just tear them off and give them to the chickens. So I'm probably going to end up pulling this whole plant out pretty soon, feeding that to the chickens, and maybe trying to start something else in this pot. My Swiss chard is going about the same way. I do use the Swiss chard as lettuce on sandwiches, but it has been struggling a little bit lately. I think it's doing okay. It's more bugginess than sun damage. So he's hanging in there. I might end up planting some more Swiss chard because I think that the kale and the Swiss chard has done the best out here in this climate, just so we can get some more sandwich lettuce. So my little blue butterfly pea is doing really well. He's growing slow and steady, and just look at the hail, what the hail did to this flower pot. It didn't break the pot, but it was chipping the paint off of it. Isn't that crazy? We got quarter-sized hail about a week ago. I'm a little nervous because we get a lot of hail out here throughout the season in West Texas, and that was just the first of, I'm predicting, many, especially because it's a hot season this year. So my cucamelons are doing really, really good. They're going up the trellis. I have one that has made it all the way to the top of the fence and has come across down now. And my pumpkin is actually coming around the backside here, and that's a pumpkin flower down there. That's the Jardale pumpkin, which when it grows the fruit has a bluish gray colored skin, and it stores really, really long. So you can pick it and have it for quite a while in a storage area before you eat it, and it'll have a really good flavor after even a long time of being stored. My tomatillos are getting massive, and I've only confirmed one fruit that has set and is doing really good. I have had some other fruits set and then fall, or some that have gotten eaten by birds, but regardless, this is one of the plants that I am going to come out and hand pollinate probably this week so that I can try to get more fruit. The one fruit that I have on here that's doing pretty good is right there. So we'll get one this year, but my ground cherries by far are doing a lot better than my tomatillos. Look at that. As I'm talking, there's another little tomatillo right here. So I guess I have two now. I'm just going to have to look a little harder, and maybe I'll see some more tomatillos on this plant. I have a dark green zucchini right here, and he's doing really good. He's growing up between my tomatillos and my corn, doing what he's supposed to. We like the dark green zucchini. He's setting a ton of flowers too, and I haven't noticed any fruit set, so I'm going to keep an eye out, keep looking at him. This is the other side of my corn where you can see the white little tassels. So we're really excited about getting some bronze dwarf corn here pretty soon. My squash bed is doing really well. I have been pruning a ton of leaves off of this, just trying to keep airflow good at the base of these, because I planted these a little bit too close together, so it's going to make it easier for them to get diseased and pest ridden this season. Next season, if I have the same garden space, instead of planting 6 plants here, I might plant 3 plants here. So in this space, I have a cantaloupe, which is doing good, but he's growing slow and steady up the edge here. And he does have some flowers setting. So we're going to see if we get any cantaloupe here pretty soon. And then I have 2 butternut squash, which are probably doing the best in this little garden area. And they are having lots of flower development. Beautiful flowers on those. And then I have 2 acorn squash, which are probably doing the poorest, but they are still setting flowers. They have some fruit that has set and then fell off. I think the hail actually damaged some of the fruit. And then we have that Jardale pumpkin, which even though it's in a small space, it's taken the most of it and grown down the backside of this garden bed. So they're doing well, but I think they would do better and grow even bigger if they had just a little more space to do it. My plan was to grow all of these up on the trellis this year, and I think I'm really just going to focus on growing my butternut and my cantaloupe up the trellis, because acorn squash, as I have found out a little late, does not grow in a vining, creeping form like I thought it would. I should have looked into that a little bit sooner. It's more of a bush variety from what I'm seeing, so this is kind of wasted trellis space. So I'm going to try to grow my butternut squash along the trellis that way. I did harvest an okra last night from my okra plant that is over here. And he has a lot more flowers that are about to bloom. The flowers are really pretty. They're white and they look kind of like a hibiscus. And so the one okra that we harvested yesterday was about probably this big. And I say this big as I'm zoomed in, not focused on my hand. It was about this big. So I sliced it and fried it up, and I shared it with Luis, and we each got about 2 bites, and it was amazing. So I have reached the consensus that I need to grow more okra next season, because my 2 plants that I have is not going to be giving me enough okra, I don't think. I need like 8 okra plants instead of 2 next year. Along this back garden bed, I have a sunflower that's doing really good. This is one teddy bear sunflower plant, and he already has 3 flowers that are opening up. He looks gorgeous. Gorgeous, gorgeous. My nasturtiums are doing good. This one's doing especially good. The one over here, half of it died back from the hailstorm. The hail went all the way down to the root and cut the plant essentially in half, killing this half. So I had to pull that out this week. My tomatoes overall are growing really, really nicely. They're almost as tall as I am. We're getting a lot of fruit development on all of these plants. I do have a little bit of spots where you can see that the hail has hit the tomatoes, like right there. But overall they're doing good. Let me show you my big boy. Look at that. This is the Blue Beauty variety of beefsteak tomato. And anywhere where the sun hits and sits on that tomato, the skin turns blue, or like a purplish. And then once these tomatoes ripen, the green areas will turn red and those blue areas will remain blue. So it's a Blue Beauty tomato, and it is beautiful. On this one plant, I am seeing 5 tomatoes that we have growing. And then I have a few over back here as well. That are looking really nice. Oh my gosh. Crazy Pip has gotten back on. There she comes. She went back and got on the coop again. I don't know what she's doing. I think she's looking for a spot to lay her eggs. And she just doesn't want to do it in the coop today for whatever reason. We're also, for whatever reason, my gosh, take a look at this. That is a swarm, big flock of turkey vultures right above us. I'm out here, so I'm not too worried about the chickens. We've never seen turkey vultures attack our girls. They do fly over a lot. They actually migrate right over our town, and they use our town as a spot to roost during their migration. So we have thousands of them that fly through and fly over. But it's just interesting. I'm kind of sad. I love seeing birds. I'm a huge fan of ornithology, love bird watching. But with how many turkey vultures we get, the girls are not at all afraid of hawks, because they're so used to the turkey vultures flying over and doing nothing, that when they see a big bird like this flying overhead, big turkey vulture, they don't even worry about when a hawk flies. So overall, my tomato plants are doing good. The exception is going to be this plant over here. Very, very stunted, has a lot of leaf curl. I'm probably going to end up pulling this plant out. It might have a tomato virus, a leaf virus, and that is going to be transmittable to my other tomato plants. In no way would that hurt humans, but it's going to kill my tomato plants before, you know, their time. So so to speak. So I'm going to probably end up pulling this tomato plant out, because look at this. He is about 18 inches tall. The other plants are almost as almost as tall as I am, so that's probably going to happen. I did end up putting some burlap sheet over my squash because I know the squash did the worst in the hailstorm, so I figured I'd give them just a little bit more protection and a little bit of relief from the sun. And I really want to come up with a way to shade the rest of my garden. I just don't know how I'm going to do it in a way that's going to not impede on the growth of these plants because they're growing so big. So still thinking. Let me know if y'all have any ideas for that or how you shade your garden. My dark opal purple basil is doing really, really good. I've already been harvesting a little bit on him. I am seeing just a little bit of bug damage. I haven't seen any bug damage on my basil before, basically right now, and I'm seeing a little bit of bug damage. I have a albino bell pepper that's growing right here. He's gonna get a little bigger before we eat him. He looks like he's about 2.5 inches long right now. We have lots of other bell peppers that are starting to set. That flower right there is a bell pepper. If the leaves were to fall off, you would see a little bell pepper plant starting to grow. And I have 4 albino bell pepper plants. I have my 3 brown jalapenos that are starting to flower this week, and their flowers are gorgeous white colored. They'll really open up more once it gets warmer outside. And then I have 2 plants right here that are my black Hungarian jalapeno. And on my black Hungarian jalapeno, I have several beautiful purple flowers, just a really pretty purple flower. And I actually have 3 jalapenos that are growing. That one, oh my gosh, I'm so tempted to pick it already, but I want to just let it grow a little bigger. And then I have one that's really big over here and a small one. And then there's probably a couple I haven't even seen yet that are starting to grow, because there's a lot of flowers I'm seeing on this plant, these 2 plants. My Listada de Gandia eggplant has been incredibly bug eaten this whole season. I know next year I'm gonna plant it a little later in the season and see if that's gonna help. I know eggplant likes the heat and it grows better in the heat, and I planted these in the garden April 1st, so I think I learned my lesson. What I did this year is this week is I did go ahead and put a little bit of diatomaceous earth on these, and I know that diatomaceous earth will prevent pollinators from coming and pollinating the flowers, but the flea beetles were so bad that they were eating the flowers too, so I wasn't going to get a healthy fruit production on this plant if I had just left it alone. So I'm going to try to kill the flea beetles, at least a wave of them, let the plant breathe a little, take a little break, grow a little bit. And then once it rains and this diatomaceous earth washes off, it's deactivated, it's all natural and organic, it's not going to hurt anything except, you know, potentially keeping pollinators away. But look at this. This is how eaten all of the leaves were. So just having the diatomaceous earth on for a week, we haven't had any rain this week. This was applied at the beginning of this week, and it's still there a little bit. I'm thinking that that's going to help the plant go back into production and grow a little bit. It is still getting a lot of bug damage. It is still getting eaten up quite a bit, but I'm thinking that that helped a little bit. I do see one flower that's actually opening up. All of the other flowers I've had so far have been eaten before they were able to open. So that gives me hope right there that the diatomaceous earth has worked. I think I might hand pollinate the first set of flowers that comes out on these guys, just because I know that I'm keeping pollinators away with this VE. So that is the back garden bed this week. In the front garden bed, I have my 2 blue beauty tomatoes that are in leaf production mode right now. This is again an area where I don't cut the suckers off, so they're producing a lot more foliage before they put effort into growing fruit. I also have a husky red cherry tomato right here, and we have 3 little cherry tomatoes that are getting big. I am looking at these every day, checking if they're ripe enough to pick because I am so ready to eat them. I did have 2 fried green tomatoes this week from that Blue Beauty tomato that was doing poorly in the back garden. I first picked off the fruit from it to see if I pulled the fruit, could it put energy into getting healthier, and then I've given it a few days and it's still doing poorly, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull that out. But the 2 Blue Beauty tomatoes that I got off of it, I sliced and fried up, were so good. So good, homegrown tomatoes, amazing. This is another set of tomatillos that I have. These were stunted at the beginning of the season, and so they didn't make it into my raised garden bed. I was planning on gifting these to my mother-in-law, but I think they're too big to travel now. So I am just gonna try to grow some tomatillos and we can give those away instead of the plant. My red bell pepper plant has really gotten huge this week. You can see the remnants of the hail damage, the hail that we had last week, but he's still putting on a lot of growth and he doesn't look too fazed by it. I think he doesn't like the wind more than he didn't like the hail. I have another Blue Beauty tomato here. This one is a sucker that I have propagated and grown in the ground. So I pruned him off of one of the tomato plants in the back garden and he's growing nice and big. He is a little sideways and that's a sucker right there. So I essentially grew him off of a 14-inch long branch that grew, or a 10-inch long branch off of one of my tomato plants in the back garden, just like this. Put him in the ground and he grew roots out of the side of the stem. So if you're low on your tomato plants, you can propagate by cutting off a sucker that's long and sticking him in the ground. Like right here, I could pull off this whole branch and start another tomato plant if I wanted to. And I would just put him in the ground all the way up to his crown, and then the rest of this would be in the soil, and that would create another tomato plant if I wanted to. My vinca is doing really good. Evie wants to be a part of the video. Don't you, my love? She always comes up when we show the front garden, don't you, honey? Okay, so I'm gonna go in front of Evie. My Marketmore cucumber has been flowering. It finally reached the trellis. My other cantaloupe up here is growing really well. It's growing a lot better than the one in the back garden because I don't think it has to compete for as much space. And you can see it has some flowers. I have a huge French breakfast radish growing here. Needs to come out, but I'm trying to let it go to seed. It hasn't gone to seed yet. Hasn't bolted, surprisingly, and it is huge. You're supposed to harvest these when these are about the size of a finger at around, 28, 32, 35 days. So within a month you can harvest it. This plant is probably 2.5 months old, well past its harvest date. So it's not even any good to eat anymore, probably. It would probably just be really woody, but we're growing it so that I can save seed from it this year. My cilantro has bolted. Look at how big that is. The flowers are really pretty. Look at these little white flowers. Really pretty white flowers on it. And then I lost everything, all my herbs that were growing here from hail. I have a blue Sirius sage that's doing really good. Another blue Sirius sage. My catnip is growing really well. Yarrow is growing really well. I'm waiting for the yarrow to flower. And then of course my peppermint balsam is a rock star. Definitely one of my favorite plants that I've grown this year. Really pretty pink and reddish with white flowers. My beans are starting to flower, and I am waiting to see, there's a really pretty flower, purple flower. These are purple potted pole beans. I'm waiting to see bean development because that would be really nice to do some like stir fry or just some nice sauteed green beans or purple beans here in the next few weeks. Really, really pretty purple flowers. And then I have some more sunflowers over here. These aren't doing very good. I planted too many in a small pot, and I've heard that if you do that, you won't hurt the plant, but it just won't grow as big and the flowers won't be big. From my experience too, I find that they take a lot more water when you do it this way. These plants, they get super, super droopy almost every day if I don't water them. So I'm watering this every single day. I'm also seeing a lot more like disease on the plant, sickness on the plant. So next year I'm going to try to plant them a little bit more spaced out because these plants are really meaty. It might just be this variety of sunflower. I just got a seed packet that was labeled sunflowers with no variety. So it could be the variety, but everything else is doing good. So I'm thinking it's because the roots are probably root bound, and that's why it's not, I don't know, it's not happy unless it has water constantly. So I'm probably going to water him in a little bit because he's going to be droopy in the next few hours. And then I have my big Jardale pumpkin over here, and this is all hail damage. I lost some leaves from hail damage. This one I'm probably going to pull out today. And then I have a nice acorn squash down in that pot. But the new leaf production on my Jardale is doing great. It's putting off new growth really well. But all of this right here is hail damage. And then in this garden bed, I have my orange nasturtium and my salmon nasturtium. And then there's an Art Combs ancient watermelon growing out of this pot. Really pretty. Has some nice little leaves and flowers. And then my teddy bear sunflower, it looks like it is done, but he should put off more flower heads. I'm gonna wait and see if he does that because he is too pretty to lose. But you know, maybe we'll get some sunflower seeds here pretty soon, so stay tuned. Well, thank you guys so much for following us along on the week 9 garden tour, and thank you so much for following this journey with us on our homestead. I do have a video I just posted about how to keep your chickens cool in the hot weather, and I also have a video where you can follow along and see what my evening routine is with the chickens in the garden. Go take a look if you haven't already, and otherwise, I'll see y'all next week for the week 10 garden tour here at Reach and Reverie. Thanks for watching, have a good night, happy homesteading, and